Right, and for more on this story, I'm joined by Sascoc President Barry Hendricks. Mr. Hendricks, welcome to the Full View. Are you one of the parties taking a huge sigh of relief that this impasse has been resolved and Cricket South Africa can move forward?
We are one of the parties that have always been for transformation. We are one of the parties that have always asked to be part of the process. We were one of the parties who said that we cannot be part of the process of developing the MOI. And then also, as one person said earlier today in a portfolio committee meeting, you cannot throw the javelin and then run across the field to accept it. So Sascoc's role in this process is very clear. We will review the MOI in line with the International Olympic Committee, in line with the Commonwealth Games Federation, of which Cricket South Africa is a party to. Their women have qualified for the Commonwealth in Birmingham. And our members will decide on this and provide us with a way forward on Saturday, the 8th of May.
In terms of your review, what would you be looking for?
We chatted to the Minister of Sport, Minister Fikile Mbalula, who we regard as one of the very finest, well, not say finest, but one of the ministers of sport who really looked after the sports fraternity. And when the Nicholson report came out, we chatted to the Department of Sport then, and we chatted to the minister then, and they agreed that in terms of democracy and the democratic process of running sport from club level to district level to provincial level to national level, the process of electing officials must be a democratic elective process. We respect Minister Balula for that agreement, and that is the position that Sascoc has unto this day, including the decision by the Zulman Commission, who recommended that the president of Sascoc should be an independent person. We sat down with Minister Kasa at that stage, and she, in her wisdom and with her department, agreed with us that sport and the sports leaders must be elected through a democratic process. And this is in line totally with the IOC, IPC, and the Commonwealth Games Federation, and that is our position.
Do you see that as a sticking point? I mean, you've given a glowing review of the two previous sports ministers. Do you have some sort of an issue with how Nathi Mthethwa is handling the situation?
No. We've asked the minister to have several meetings with him, and we are waiting for him to allow us to meet with him. He has replied to us that he will meet at his leisure, and we will wait for that process to unfold. We as Sascoc are quite clear. We are the sports movement of this country, and we will defend the democratic process of electing our officials. And unless my members tell me differently, that is a position that I cannot move from.
When Cricket South Africa was plunged into turmoil, you as the president of Sascoc, what were you doing behind the scenes to rectify the situation? They were going to have their funding cut, they were going to be not recognized anymore. It must have been a huge crisis for you.
It was a terrible moment in South African sport for a minister to defund for the first time ever in the history of South Africa. For the minister to defund and deregister sport without behind-the-scenes negotiations. If one had to look at CODESA and how we had to work behind the scenes to bring about a constitution that all could work with, Sascoc is hell-bent on that process. We do not need guns to be held to our heads. We are clearly here for the position of democracy in sport. We are clearly here to recognize that Cricket South Africa was at fault But to change the democratic process of elections is not the answer. It's about changing the governance of the organization. And we are willing to work with every stakeholder to achieve that goal.
In terms of incorporating more independence on the board, is there factions in Sascoc that see this as a threat to themselves, almost taking sports people out of running sport?
No, let me get that record straight. The Sascoc board is unified in its approach. The Sascoc membership is unified in its approach. There are no factions any longer. Since November 2020, the new elections, we do not have factions in Sascoc. Our approach is common, and that is to develop our sport, to work within a democratic South African society, and to work with people, but more importantly, to negotiate, to have dialogue on a constant basis to reach a situation that everybody agrees on, not to threaten people with acts. We are working towards a position where we want cricket to change. And Sascoc can see a situation where we can provide some solutions to ensure that we have independence on the board of CSA, as we have with Sascoc, so that the CSA can also benefit from the thought and the experience of those independents. But sport belongs to sports people, and we cannot take that away from them.
The Nicholson report is oft quoted as the blueprint to the new good governance that a lot of people want to see come into sport. Is Sascoc at odds with the Nicholson report in any way?
Yes, Sascoc, in fact, in 2012, 2013, had a position. We said to Minister Mbalula that according to our constitution and according to the IOC and the Commonwealth Games, that the leaders of sport must be elected by sports people. And with the Zulman Commission, where they recommended that we must have an independent chairperson or president, we again liaised with Minister Kasa, and she agreed that the process of democracy must prevail in sport. You cannot take that away from sport. And then when people throw the King 4 report at us, we must ask the King 4, the IODSA, and I've done this on many occasions. It is about creating a balance. And sport is not purely a business. Let me just give you a reminder. When we had the issue of the ball tampering in Newlands with Australia, it was under a completely independent Australian board. And a commission was established immediately thereafter. And that commission found that that independent board, in terms of ethics, was wanting, because their approach was only based on business, not on the tradition of the game and not of the democracy of the game. So just by bringing in independence does not mean that's the savior. We need to work on a fair, equitable process, and Sascoc is willing to work with every stakeholder to ensure that we can turn Cricket South Africa around.
I mean, what we've heard from the interim board and from the Ministry of Sport is that they're opposed to this view, and it seems like we might be heading to another impasse. What is your solution?
Everybody forgets that Sascoc is an independent body consisting of 86 members. Those members all have their own constitutions. Those constitutions are derived from the international bodies. So when people tell you that it is international best practice to have a majority of independents, they need to get their facts in order. There's only one organization in the whole of the cricket fraternity that has independent majority, and that is Cricket Australia, not even the International Cricket Council. So we are asking for people to keep level heads Let's sit around the table. Let's make sure that we work in the best interest of the sport. We have realized that cricket have issues that are wanting, and we will sit with them and correct it. But do not take sport away from sports people. It is like saying you're taking the vote away from South Africans and putting it in the hands of independent people. We will not tolerate that.
Barry Hendricks, President of Sascoc, thanks very much for your side of the story. We'll keep checking in on this story. It's not going away anytime soon.